Hey guys, Fox here, and today we're going to be starting the playoff team draft recaps from the 2024 UFL College Draft. And with that, we're starting with the St. Louis Battlehawks, who had the best selection of the four that made the playoffs with the 5th overall pick. Now, the Battlehawks as a team, well, really like most of these teams that made the playoffs, really don't have any position that was truly terrible. Every position was at worst decent to at best incredible. Now, it's mainly about getting good talent and guys that kind of just make your areas better, necessarily than fixing weaknesses. This is not like the Renegades needing to draft D linemen or the Showboats needing to draft O linemen. So, like always, if you end up enjoying this video or you want to be notified as soon as I upload the other three, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell. And without further ado, let's get started with the 5th overall pick in Chevan Cordeiro. I get this selection. This is you drafting somebody for the question of if AJ doesn't return. Again, both DC and Arlington did this, DC to a terrible extent, but they both did the same thing. Drafting a quarterback because you don't know for sure if your QB is going to return. Now, with Cordero, he was at San Jose State. He was a first-team All-Mountain West and a second-team All-Mountain West both years at San Jose State. Now, in terms of what he did, he went basically like around 7-5, 7-6 as a starter, but overall put up really solid numbers. Okay, 23 TDs to 6 interceptions, 20 TDs to 4 interceptions. Decent ground game as well, with decent TDs as well on there, 9 and 3. And then when you look at his time with Hawaii and the Rainbow Warriors, which was before San Jose State, he put up some decent numbers his last 2 years, but at San Jose he was a much better QB there. Again, it's understandable why you make this selection, okay? You did see Manny Wilkins play. You see that he has potential, but that his passing game did leave a lot to be desired. It still showed flashes that he could be a really dominant QB if he were to get that under control. But again, this is a really solid selection in a sense that if you don't know for sure when AJ is gone, will he play one more year? Will he not? We don't know. And especially since Cordero is currently not on an NFL roster, this is somebody who could very well play for this team as soon as this upcoming season. So when you look at that, I think this is a solid selection for a QB. So I think it's a good one. Now, their second round pick was Cody Schrader. Now, running back actually was really solid for the Battlehawks. So you kind of expect it to not be all that good, but it ended up being really good. Now, they did lose one of their running backs to the NFL already. And of course, Mateo Duran is coming off an injury. So you always want to be prepared, and this is being prepared. Essentially, you now have a running back who either will return to you having been in the NFL, or one who will come to you in Schrader, from your college draft. So I think that all in all, this is a solid selection. You're making sure that, you still have a decent running back. Again, you're kind of double dipping in this sense as you have a running back that was really good that is now currently in the NFL that might return, and then you have one that also might come to the league as well. Now, as for Schrader, he was a Bullsworth Trophy winner, which, is for like the walk-on, best walk-on player, consensus All-American, first team All-SEC. 1,600 yards on the ground with Missouri, really solid numbers, 14 TDs on a near 6 yards per attempt. His last year at Truman, he had 2,000 yards, 25 TDs. So this is somebody who has been really solid in every level. It's just that, again, walk-ons are not always, the most sought-after players all the time for, whatever reason you want to say, mainly because they're not highly recruited from the start. But we have seen walk-ons go on and have success in the NFL. But again, a running back that has been in college football since 2018, who has had a decent amount of wear and tear, but still young, only 24. We'll see what happens. I like this pick. Again, you want to make sure that you have a running back at some point that is good. So now you have a running back where you're hoping he recovers from injury, a running back that might return to you, and a running back that might join your team. Solid. Now, their third round pick was Valdarius Payne, defensive lineman. Now, he just recently got cut from Houston as of like 2 days ago when this video comes out, I believe. Now, he did play in Nebraska and Virginia Tech. Last year at Virginia Tech, he put up some solid numbers, 4 sacks, 10 TFLs. But again, this is somebody who was just released by an NFL team. Will he re-sign? Maybe. If not, he's going to help you out. Again, you're just shoring up your defense. Solid selection, can't be mad about it. Now, the next one was an offensive lineman in Bradley Ashmore out of Vanderbilt. He overall played, at least 8 games every year. There's not really much to say. You picked an offensive lineman. It's a solid selection. Right before this, if I'm not mistaken, is when DC picked Greenfield. So, you kind of couldn't get that one, but this is still a really solid pick all in all. Definitely not much to be upset about. Solid selection. Now, their 5th round pick was Carl Jones Jr., linebacker, currently playing for the Chicago, but out of UCLA. He was with UCLA ever since 2019, and he's overall been about the same player every year. 20 plus tackles, 3-ish TFLs or more, and like 1 to 2 sacks every year. Somebody who's been very consistent. Now, of course, his last year he did a bit better tackle-wise. But again, somebody who's been that OLB that has been really solid for every year of college football. So if he goes to the UFL, he's going to help your pass rush out. You can't be mad about that. Again, not much to say, but a really solid pick all in all. Now, their 6th-round pick was Isaiah Coe out of Oklahoma, defensive tackle. Now, the 3 years at Oklahoma, he put up decent numbers. Mainly his second year there, he put up 8 sacks or 8 TFLs, which is his best season. He was also a junior college player and all that. But all in all, again, you're shoring up your D-line. It's always a good decision to shore up your lines, both of them, as they're both pretty hard to get super talent. Your D-line was already a decent unit, but I mean, your linebackers were really where you really were good at. So I understand getting some help on the D-line. So again, another solid pick, not much to say. Now, Jelani Baker, wide receiver out of Limestone. Now, this is one that a lot of people were kind of happy about. I mean, some were shocked, but in a good way. This guy had over 1,000 yards at Limestone. He wasn't playing at one of the major schools, but again, this is somebody who is currently not on an NFL roster and really fits the UFL mold really well. Being overseen in college, goes to the UFL, has a good season, possibly so upcoming year plays for them. This feels like a selection that was made entirely because it's all but guaranteed he's going to play for the UFL next year. Now, I'm not saying it's 100%, but there's a high likelihood he will be in the UFL, which means he will be on the Battlehawks next year. And again, the Battlehawks, they had a lot of great receivers. They will have a lot of great receivers next year, but they didn't really use them all that well because of, their OC not really, being a good OC. But this is somebody who can be a really good threat for the team. So I like this pick a lot for that reason, even though it's not really a position you needed to draft at all. But it's one of those where you kind of are expecting him to be in the UFL, and you can get him and stop a team like DC from getting him. That's a good selection. Now, Jaden Janke, currently on the Texans, is where it gets a bit weirder in a sense that you're double dipping in the wide receiver. Again, somebody who was solid at SDSU, 2,800 yards in the 4 years he actually, played receiver there. Overall was a solid player, 30 total TDs receiving. This is somebody who I definitely think could be a really good receiver in the UFL, but again, it's double dipping in a position you really don't need to. Again, even if some of your wide receivers don't return next year, you already had 4 great ones. So if 2 of them don't return, it's not like it's that big a deal. So, I don't know. I think it's a solid pick in some ways. Kind of feels like you're kind of hurting other teams more than helping your own, though. That's just my thoughts, is what it is. Now, their 9th round pick was Miles Sims, cornerback out of Georgia Tech. Not really against this one. Cornerback, if you were to really... there really wasn't that many weaknesses on the team. DBs, it's always good to help those get better. When you look at him, he does have, almost 40 tackles a year the last 2 years at Georgia Tech. Had 1 TFL each year, had an interception both years. So can't really be too upset about this. Again, it's an understandable pick, helping shore up the back end on your defense. It's a solid selection. Again, can't really be too mad about it. Decent one. And then they double down at cornerback with Miles Jones for the last pick. Again, doubling down, smart decision. Talked about before, you can get multiple guys to help you. Solid pick. Currently, he's on the Jets. He is coming out of Duke, a big 6'4" guy. Now, when you look at him statistically, he didn't do a ton statistically the last couple of years, but that's also because he didn't really play a lot of games. When you date back his last full year at Texas A&M, he actually put up really good numbers, 29 total tackles, 2 TFLs, and 2 interceptions. Then in 8 games in 2020, he had even more tackles, but also had an interception. But then he only played 2 games, 1 game, 4 games. So somebody who has had concerns in injury side and playing side. But if he's on the Jets, it's because people do think, hey, this guy could be really solid. So again, solid pick overall, decent while you're double dipping at the position. Now their draft grade is going to be B+. I can't really put them at A or higher. I just don't think they did enough to deserve that in a sense. I think that double dipping at wide receiver was questionable. I would have liked to see at least 1 more offensive lineman selected. Again, there's not really too much to be upset about. It's just that, do I think this was better than the Renegades draft? No. Do I think it was a good draft? Yes. I think there's a couple players that they could have gotten better options had they selected guys in a different area. I think Bradley Ashmore is a perfect example. That's a solid selection, but I think there were better offensive linemen that you could have drafted before and even afterwards. So because of that, I'm going to put it at that grade. Again, it's a B+. It's not like I'm saying they did a bad job. I just think that they could have done better. So that'll do it. This has been ZomFox. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell to be notified as soon as I upload any videos. As I still have, as I said, 3 more teams to do, the Panthers, Brahmas, and Stallions. and then the supercut version coming out later. And as always, guys, have a great night.